everyone, this is Jill Hilliard for the Stamp Simply Ribbon Store, and today we are going to do some simple distress oxide blending with some heat embossing. Let's get started. Okay, so I have white and I have a new sponge dauber, a post-it note, and we are going to be distress oxiding in spun sugar, which is a light pink. So I'm going to go ahead and ink this up real good. Gonna take a little bit because it's a brand new dauber. I have got my other one dirty. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna start off the edge here, and I'm just gonna blend that in. And I'm gonna start over here, off the edge a little bit. Now, as it's getting more inky, we'll be able to blend in. So I'm gonna start off the edge here, kind of go in there. I don't want a hard edge or a circle from the dauber, so you've gotta be really light-handed. So as more ink gets on the cardstock, it'll be easier to maneuver it around a little bit. So you can see I'm not getting circles as much. So we're just gonna go ahead and keep working my way down towards the center. And I have a very light hand to make sure the fade is light. So up here where I can add more ink, it doesn't really matter. But as I work my way towards the center, I want it lighter. So I'm just gonna go in a little bit more. And some of it will be easily disguised with the stamping and the heat embossing. All right, so there is a little bit of a line there, but we're just gonna go with it. And I'm gonna start working my way in from the other side with the pink. So start off the edge of the paper, work your way in. And then there's some lint on my ink pad here, but that will wipe off once the stuff dries. So you can see I have a hard circle there. I'm just gonna go back over it with some more ink and kind of work the circles out. Layering is key here. So we're just gonna lightly, so now you can see my dauber's pretty inked up. So we're just gonna lightly bring in more color like that. Again, start off the edge and kind of work your way towards the center. So I'm about there for that part. So I'm gonna just sort of lightly blend going up. And I do have some circles, but I'm gonna work those out from the dauber as you move forward towards the center. All right, so that's too big of a white, so I still need to add some more. All right, so I'm gonna come off the edge here so I can get more ink down the bottom. Kind of just drag it over. And then we'll soften that edge up a little bit. And then same thing, we're gonna come in off the edge here, soften that up a little bit. My craft mat is wiggling. All right, so now we have pretty much a white center. So we're gonna soften these up by moving the leftover ink, but not pressing real hard. And then I'm just gonna pull in a little bit more over here. Now we're gonna have the sentiment in the middle. So I'm gonna wanna put a little bit of pink. I don't want it to start white. And then a little bit more over here. Now, because I'm gonna stamp right there in the middle, you're not gonna see that hard line where the mess up is. This is actually really forgiving if it's not perfect. All right, so don't stress if it's not perfect. Okay, so I'll save this dauber. I'm gonna put it on the bottom of my ink pad. All right, so now we're gonna have the distressed part of it. So I have my water brush here, and I'm just gonna put a blob of water here on my craft mat. Make sure my bristles are super, super soaked, and we're just gonna flick it on there. This will give you all the little tiny spots, like that. And then you're just gonna wanna go in and add some big ones to give it some texture. The bigger the droplet, the bigger You don't want too many big ones, and you don't want them to look like you put them on there, so make sure they're kind of round. The other thing you can do is sort of drip a big one or two. You don't want too many big ones. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and let that dry, and we'll come back and finish the card. Now my panel is dry, and you can see that the distressed water droplets are visible, and it's dry to the touch. So what you're gonna need is your embossing buddy, and you're gonna wanna wipe down the whole thing. This way here you don't get any stray white embossing powder. So I have my stamp lined up in my MISTI. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and place this in, hold it in place with the magnet, and we are gonna ink this up with Versamark. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna heat emboss. So I'm gonna go down the front first and heat that up. And so I'm gonna move this out of the way. I store my embossing powder in Gladware, and we are gonna sprinkle the powder on there and just tap the excess off into the container. So now you can see that there's just powder, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna melt that with the heat embossing tool. So it's just gonna take a minute. I'm gonna turn it on so it's gonna sound like a hairdryer. And I'm just gonna heat this until it melts. Hopefully you can see that it's turning a bright white. Pretty quick. All right, so now you can see that. And then I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna do it in the bottom corner down here. So I am going to put this in like this. This is dry. It's warm, but it's dry. And I'm going to slide it to the top of my MISTI. And I am going to grab a wipe here, wipe off the Versamark that I already had on there. And I'm going to move this down towards the bottom because I want just partial of the image. So I think I need to, let's see, let's move this up a little bit so we can have some room. I only want the bottom corner here to show like that. So we're gonna close this up, carefully lift it up. I'm just gonna ink that corner with Versamark, and we're gonna repeat the same process. Okay, it doesn't matter if it moves now. Same thing, we're gonna hit it with some embossing powder. Tap off the excess and heat it up. All right, so now we're ready for the finishing touches. There are lots of sentiments in the summer roses. You can do Thinking of You, Sweet Friend, Hello. I actually chose another stamp set from the Stamp Sibley ribbon store, and that is the All Occasion Sentiments Set 1, and we are going to use the Get Well Wishes from there. I'm going to peel that off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it right here in the center of the card. So I've already removed the roses, and I'm just gonna line that up. We're gonna close the window, and then I'm just gonna stamp that in black memento ink. All right, so we are all set. Close the door on the MISTI, and we have Get Well Wishes. So there's one last finishing touch for this card. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some splatter. So there are a variety of tools out there on the market to make splatter. There's silks, there are sprays, this, that, and the other thing. Today we are going to do the very basic version, and I have my Memento ink refill, a clear block, and 2 drops of ink. So I have my water brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm going to squeeze a big drop of water out onto the block. And what you're going to do is you're going to make sure those bristles are super, super wet, and then you're going to dip it in there and you are going to splatter. So you might have to dip more than once. There it goes. And you just want to splatter a couple times. And because this is water-based ink, it's going to dry really quick. And what you're going to do is you're going to, so this doesn't stain your water brush, you are going to clean it right away and just squeeze the water through it with a baby wipe until the bristles run clear. You can see there's a lot of ink in there and it just needs a little bit to come off, and I'm squeezing the water through it to rinse the ink out, and you can see it's pretty much clean. And then this you can just wipe off later. So we're going to move that out of the way. All right, so now you can see you get that pretty splatter effect with most likely supplies that you have in your stash. So now that the speckles are dry, we're going to go ahead and attach this to the card. This is cut to 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm just going to use some liquid glue for no apparent reason other than this was on my table. We're going to let that set for a second. This liquid glue dries pretty quickly. And then I have a card base here, which is 4 1/4 by 11. And I like to pop this up on some foam squares. So we are going to go ahead and add those. I'm going to put 2 extra here in the middle to give it a little more support. Peel those off. And we are just about done. All right, so we are just going to line this right up. It's a pretty tight squeeze, only 1/8 of an inch. There we go. And there's the finished projects. Thanks for joining me today.